and welcome to the Immediacy of Teaching, Episode 1. I'm your host, Lexi Reynolds, educator and avid supporter of change in the education world. To start this series of podcasts off, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my background and how the idea for the Immediacy of Teaching got started. I am a certified high school English teacher, and I have been teaching or working in education for about 4 years now. I have a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature and a Bachelor of Science in Education, and I am on my way to completing my Master's in Education with a focus in distance learning. Now, I am by no means a know-it-all when it comes to the education world. However, this is not going to stop me from playing one in a podcast. Seriously though, I am very passionate about the field, and that is one of the reasons I'm choosing to do this. My experiences in the classroom have been very diverse, but one thing rings true. Teaching is about the now for the students I have met. Even the students who have their whole lives planned out, or think they do, the now, the today, the instant gratification world is much more important to them than many of us educators will ever truly understand. I have a lot of experience working with students that the institution would label at risk. I have no idea what this term means. I understand what the powers that be want it to mean, but to me it seems cruel and demeaning to label these young adults in this way. From their perspective, it's just another example of how everyone thinks they are failures, about how they will never be part of the select group of successful people, because for some reason they don't fit quite right. And really, these labels are just sad. But through working with these students, through becoming part of their lives and them becoming part of mine, I have come to understand that teaching is indeed more about the now than ever before. I am no freedom writers or dangerous minds kind of teacher, and although I do feel that giving teaching your all is important and that every student has the potential to learn, I by no means feel you need to go to such lengths to really make a difference. But we do need to go to some lengths, and yes, this means changing our very broken, very backwards system for educating. Here's what I mean by that. We need to stop focusing on the future events, grades, tests, and outcomes that most of these students can't even imagine, let alone plan for, and start focusing on what we can do for these students today, right now, immediately. Hey! It's your tomorrow! Here's an example that I think really touches on what I want to get out of these podcasts. It's my first year of teaching. I have 5 11th grade English classes that I am teaching. One of those classes is in a quote-unquote at-risk, in-school program that offers students smaller class sizes and slowed curriculum in order to encourage them to stay in school. That year, it was by far my favorite class to teach. The students were fiery, exciting, and always surprising in mostly good ways. We were reading Night by Elie Wiesel, and although the students initially put up a fight about reading, every one of them was enthralled with the novel by the 3rd page. We were well into the novel when I assigned a homework assignment to write a somewhat lengthy journal entry concerning their personal feelings as we read this very powerful and emotional novel. The students were very open to the assignment, even though I was asking them to complete it at home. Mind you, these are the students I was told would never do work outside of class, let alone read. So, I was feeling pretty good about myself. I got them to read, and I was getting them excited about homework. This is when, of course, at the height of my first year teaching ignorance, reality hit me. At exactly 2:15 p.m., when the closing bell rang, one of my best students came into the room and asked to speak with me. He looked concerned. He then proceeded to tell me that he had tried very hard to find the time during school to complete my homework journal assignment, but that every class he was in kept him busy, and he was afraid he was not going to be able to complete the assignment. He wanted to let me know how sorry he was, and that he would take the 0 tomorrow for his grade. I asked him if there was anything I could do to help him complete the assignment, even if it was after the due date. He then finally opened up to me. He said he didn't think homework would be an option for him, because he worked right after school, making and delivering pizzas for the local Domino's. He told me that the only reason he kept the job, even though it interfered with success at school, was because he used the money to buy food, bread and milk, for his 7-year-old brother, who lived with their drug addict mom at the house that he now refused to stay at because of her addictions. This is when I realized the immediacy of teaching. Right then, with this student, one of my best in the class, who is leaving this building each day, working long shifts at a job that he doesn't want to keep, just to feed his younger brother at a house he hates so much that he chooses to instead live on the street. I asked myself then, and still do now, how standardized tests or GPAs or any of the long-term goals we stress to our students mattered at a moment like that. On that day, I did the only thing I could do in that moment. I told him to forget about the homework and to try to have a good day, and that I hoped to see him tomorrow. A week doesn't go by that I don't think about that student. Mostly because the truth is, he's not an uncommon example from the hundreds of students I've taught. Unfortunately, he is the norm. So, in general, this is the reason for the immediacy of teaching. It is because I can't stand to sit in professional development meetings and pretend to care about standardized tests and GPAs and graduation rates, when I know for sure that many of my students are just trying to make it to tomorrow, that they are just trying to get by, and that worst of all, they feel alone and forgotten about. This doesn't mean we have to change our whole lives and dedicate every inch of our being to supposedly saving these students. But what it means, to me, is that we have to care more about making them feel successful and wanted each day they are in our class. That we need to care a little bit more about the way we measure these students' success, and care a little bit less about things that are meaningless in the grand scheme of these students' worlds. This is not to say that assessments are bad. Some aren't. Or that these students shouldn't learn how to strive for the future. It just means that before we overreact about test scores or missed homework, we should ask ourselves, have I done everything I can today to show this student that I actually care? Thank you, and please remember to teach in the immediate.